What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm working on my silver 335. This car has been off of the channel for a few months now, and there's a reason behind that, and today I'm going to show you that reason. So unfortunately this car has sprung a coolant leak. A few months back I was traveling for work, and this thing for the first time ever left me stranded. Overheated, coolant spraying everywhere. You can see it all over the engine cover. We've got coolant in the oil filter housing area. And at the time, I thought it was the radiator because that is a somewhat common leak area if you're leaking a lot of coolant. These have a plastic radiator and sometimes the plastic cracks. So I thought it was the radiator and unfortunately had to get it towed back home. But after a closer look, I think it's leaking from somewhere else. And this is the most common coolant leak area. I can't believe I forgot about it. But today I'm going to dive in and really quickly show you how you can either prevent this from happening from your N54, or if this happens to you, you'll be able to do it yourself and then bleed the coolant system afterwards. The first step is going to be to remove this air snorkel, and there's two steps to doing that. The first one is to remove both T20 Torx screws on each side. Now with the screws removed from the bottom, we're going to use a thin flathead screwdriver to disconnect the snorkel from the airbox. With both sides disconnected, you should be able to wiggle this up and out of the car. And with the snorkel removed, we can already tell exactly where this leak is coming from. Now you'll notice there's a coolant hose here with the extension running all the way over the top, the front of the car, and over to the coolant reservoir tank. And this hose in the middle is like a black plastic instead of a rubber. It's like a hard plastic in between here. It clips into the fan shroud, the radiator shroud, and you'll notice where it clips in over here, we've got a massive crack. So on the driver's side, this is split completely wide open, as you can see. And thankfully I already ordered the whole complete hose, so today I'll be replacing it from this section all the way over to there. But if you're in a pinch, or this happens to you, or you don't want to spend the 20 bucks it is on this complete replacement hose, you can just undo these two clips here on each side, and then replace this centerpiece with some sort of metal tubing that will never crack, or some other type of stronger tubing. But this car has 150,000 miles on it, and this is the first time it's happened to me, but I've seen it happen to many others where this tube cracks. Now to remove this line, since I'm replacing the whole thing, there's two things we got to be careful of. The first thing is that this car cannot be warm or hot. We got to give it time to cool down so that once we introduce ourselves to this coolant system, it's not going to spray everywhere. Now granted, if we had a leak, it would already be coming out of here, but anytime you're working with coolant, you want to give the car some time to cool down and depressurize. The second thing is that this piece right here, underneath this hose, is a plastic nipple connected to this connector. And this plastic nipple has got to be like the second most common leaking thing on an N54. When you're messing with this, it's so brittle that this thing will just break right off, and then you'll be left with having to replace this hose and this hose. So we got to be careful when we're disconnecting the hose. Today I'm going to remove this hose with a Dremel. I've got a circular saw bit on here, and I'm just going to go through this clamp to the point where this clamp is completely severed, and then carefully pull this off. This isn't a hose clamp, so we can't loosen it, and it's not a clamp that we can compress and then decompress. It's kind of a permanent clamp, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. I should be able to kind of pry that clamp off of there and slowly remove the hose. So again, you'll see here, this is just a plastic nipple. Don't break it off. On the passenger side, I've just got a pick, and we're just going to pull up the clip and then kind of wiggle this off of the coolant reservoir. Now with both sides disconnected and the two center clips unclipped, we can kind of weasel this out of here. Now on the bench over here, I've got my new hose next to the old one, and you'll see this new one is nice and soft. Everything is new, nothing's brittle. But you'll notice on the end over here where I had to cut off the clamp using the Dremel, the new one does not come with a clamp because, like I said, it's a permanent clamp. So I've got an assorted hose clamp kit anyways, but I'm just going to be using a 1/2 inch hose clamp right on this end. And I'll show you guys how we install that then. Now we do need more coolant. I lost a lot of coolant, but I'm a fan of this Pentofrost NF. You can get OEM BMW coolant, it's just more expensive versus if you buy a 1.5 liter jug of this, you can mix like 2 or 3 full gallon jugs of coolant out of this one bottle. So I've already got one pre-mixed, but I'll show you guys how to mix that up, and then we'll get this installed in the car and bleed the coolant system to get all the air out of it. Installation of this new hose is just the reverse of assembly, so I'm going to go ahead and slide this through here. And be sure to have your hose clamp on the hose before you connect it on that other side. This should just push on. We can clip this in here and here. And I'll go ahead and carefully insert this onto the plastic nipple. Before we add coolant, we got to properly mix these two. And Pentofrost NF calls for mixing 1/2 and 1/2 with water. So we've got 1.5 liters here. I fed my dog with the other half of this, but you'll have to get rid of that or use a separate mixing jug. But I'm just going to use the one that the water came with, and then carefully pour in this whole bottle of Pentofrost. Alright, and you'll notice I've already done this in the past, but I had some left over. So I could have used this, but I wasn't sure how much I'd need. I'm going to go ahead and start adding coolant. Oh, and by the way, I want to note that this is distilled water. I've heard of people using regular water and it corroding the coolant system in the cars, so make sure you get distilled water. Again, make sure your car is cooled off before doing this, otherwise there will be pressure in this system. And obviously once this level indicator comes all the way up, it is full. So I'm letting it kind of gurgle it down a little bit. And you want to keep extra coolant handy. That's why I got more than just this one jug, because once we start the bleeding procedure, it will probably drink in some coolant. Now to start the bleeding procedure, we've got the coolant full, the cap off, and I have a power source here with a little battery charger. That's not 100% needed if your battery's in good health. But I know mine, this car's been sitting for a few months, so I've got this on just to help, because what's going to happen is we're going to turn the electric fuel pump on and it's going to run for 10 minutes. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. At this point we're inside the vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and insert the key into the ignition and then just press the button once without your foot on the brake or gas. This is going to put it in the ignition on position. We've got the headlights off. We want to turn anything off that could drain the power. The radio's off. And at this point you want your heat all the way up, so we've got it all the way up at 84 on both sides, and just at the lowest point. So we don't want the blowers all the way up, we want it at the lowest mark with the heat all the way up. Now with this, we're just going to press the gas pedal down all the way to the floor, and we'll do this for about 10 seconds. And now I just heard the water pump kick on. So we'll leave the car in the on position, and we're gonna see here, this thing's starting to burp, and I can hear the electric water pump on. Not sure if you can kind of hear that. So you can see here it's squirting out coolant into the reservoir. It's cycling everything, and it's going to do this for about 10 minutes, and it'll squirt and splash for a while. You'll know what it's done. But it'll go for about 10 or 12 minutes, and you can already see that the level is dropped. So I'm going to continue to add coolant as this stick lowers down, before it was all the way up here. So it's cycling all the coolant, getting all the air out, and you'll just want to make sure you keep the reservoir full. That was all air that you hear getting out of the system, and I should note that while this is happening, you should be looking at all the areas where you think you might have leaking coolant, wherever your leak was, to make sure it's not spraying coolant from those areas. Oh no, I knew that would happen.
11 minutes later.
At this point, it sounds like the coolant pump is done running, everything's done squirting, the level is good here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the cap back on, and I'm going to wipe down this coolant leak, and we should be good to go. Now at this point, the last step is to reinsert the air snorkel, but I'm actually going to leave this off because I want to kind of spray this off and wash down this engine bay and kind of get rid of all the coolant traces and oil and dirt and grime. So I'm going to do that while it's out. But that's going to wrap up this video. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. And also subscribe. We just hit 30,000 subscribers, which is crazy to me. Thank you guys. But we've got more videos on this coming soon. We've got downpipes, race intercooler, cowl scoops, cowl filters, all sorts of stuff on this car. Videos for the 135, videos for the M3. So don't miss out and be sure to stay tuned. Until the next one, I will see you guys later. Peace.